I'd like to talk about something that I practice, which is this growth mindset around my beliefs. And this can apply to anything that I learn, any information that I take in or consume in any area of my life. I am regularly subjecting my own thoughts and my own opinions and my own judgments to rigorous critique. So you often hear me say, or I should say, I put in my description box, those of you who read it, thank you, but I will often put, be an independent and critical thinker. And what I mean by that is simply that. I think in today's day and age where we have so much access to this wealth of information on every topic imaginable, so we have a lot of noise is what I'm trying to say. And it can be difficult to, at least I'm speaking for myself, I think it can be difficult to decide what we believe. So the best way to find your own path and find your own way is to listen to a wide variety of voices, listen to a wide variety of opinions and thoughts, and then critique them using your own standard of values that you hold and subject them to criticism. And if they are thoughts and beliefs that are already held by you, and for instance, if you're watching content that simply confirms what you already know or believe about the world, this can apply to worldviews, this can apply to politics, to diet, to lifestyle, to people, to anything. I encourage you to regularly subject your thoughts to rigorous critique. And that is the best way I have found. That is the best advice and the best way to grow, to truly grow and to become an intelligent mind. So I recently was watching an interview and the person said something very enlightening, which I think is true. And it is that the mark of a truly intelligent mind or an intelligent thinker is the ability or the capacity to hold two conflicting thoughts or opinions simultaneously. So think about that as well. Analyze how your own decision-making differs from your past self, for instance. That's another good thought exercise to do so that you can see if you are staying stagnant in your beliefs or if you are progressing forward as a human being. I also think it's very dangerous to identify with your core set of beliefs and your worldview because it is limiting. So to judge something inherently, to form an opinion about it, is to limit it. You are limiting it by labeling it. So of course I am judgmental and critical like I am human. But what I mean is that if you identify closely with your thoughts and your beliefs and you grip onto that firmly and hold onto it as a label of what you identify as, I think that's a very dangerous position to put oneself in because if you are closing yourself off, quite literally, to new ideas and new thought patterns and new information, then you don't grow, you won't grow, and you are severely limiting yourself as a human being. One of the reasons that I read books by people like Jordan Peterson, for instance, is not because I like Jordan Peterson. First of all, I don't know Jordan Peterson. I've never met Jordan Peterson, so I don't know him to like him or dislike him. I disagree heavily with his parenting advice, for instance. I think it's terrible. But there are some good ideas in his books, and I read his books because I tend to gravitate towards people, these so-called thought leaders that garner attention. I am curious most of all about them. I'm curious to know and to study how they speak, how they perform in the world. I think there's value in exposing yourself to all different kinds of ideas and thoughts and opinions, especially those with whom you disagree. So that is why I read books by him, for instance. I'm using him as an example, but there are many others. And I purposefully do this because if I only read books and follow information, if I only expose myself to people with whom I agree and who I know have worldviews, for instance, that align with mine, well, where's the excitement and growth in that? It's just confirming what I already believe. Confirmation bias doesn't really serve me in terms of learning anything new. It simply reinforces what I already know. So that's valuable, but I don't think it's as valuable comparatively to reading books by people and listening to people's whose opinions might be in friction with mine. So I personally enjoy that because I learn more and I open myself up to possibility of gaining useful tips and useful knowledge from people who I don't necessarily like, but I think there's wisdom to be learned from all voices. And that's my point, is to open yourself up and realize that there is value in listening to many people and many sources of information, and then the onus is on you to think critically and dissect that and to form your own path and your own worldview, and have that be constantly open to changing. That's the key. Is we don't want to be, I'm not the same person I was when I was 20. I'm not the same person I was when I was 25 or 35. I'm constantly growing and learning, and having this growth mindset has served me so well because I don't remain stagnant and I don't get stuffy in my thoughts and my opinions. And most of all, I remain a student of life, which is, I think, the most important takeaway, is to be curious. Perhaps it's in my nature. I think it is a little bit inherent in me that I have always been insatiably curious, in fact. And I understand that not everyone is curious about themselves, about the world, about other people, about knowledge, but the best way to grow and to learn about anything is to be open and to be willing. And I think it doesn't serve people to be very rigid and to be dogmatic. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of that in my profession. People get extremely dogmatic, for instance, about diet and about food and about what others should be doing. And there is no should. There's no such thing as should. Optimally, what's going to serve one person is going to be poison for another, because there are so many different factors involved in diet, for instance. There are so many different factors involved in what is going to be optimal for the person. My best advice is to be willing to experiment and try out different diets and measure it on yourself. Perform that N of 1 experiment where you are the subject and you are experimenting on yourself, and measure the outcome. Record the data, look at the data, and use that information to inform your decisions moving forward. And you will be surprised by how much you can learn about diet, for instance, and about how different foods affect you, your mood, your physicality, everything, your sleep. And it has to be something that you're willing to measure and willing to be open to changing your mind about. So dogmatic thinking and dogmatic prescriptive language even is not going to serve anyone, certainly in the realm of diet, but in any area of life, I would argue. Hold your beliefs, of course. It's important that we have strong convictions and that we cultivate our intuition and trust ourselves and all of these things that I talk about. But ultimately, it's good to hold your beliefs, but hold them softly, which is to say, be willing to change your mind. Be willing to introduce new beliefs and new thought patterns and new behaviors, because mood precedes action, and our actions collectively create our habits, which create our lives. So that would be the best piece of advice, I suppose, is to not be rigid, not be gripping, and hold your beliefs, but hold them softly. And I wish you the best of luck, as always, And I thank you so much for being here.